What's going on, comic fans? It's Mike from the Hardcover Comic here. Today, I wanted to talk about a sort of subgenre of comics that's very near and dear to my heart. It was the transition for me from the big two, Marvel and DC, to more independent publishers trying to follow other continuities and other storylines with grand characters and grand plots that I had ignored up until this point. Crossover events that were epic beyond any scale, that had real consequences on a comic universe. So much awesome stuff out there that I was completely ignorant to. I was stuck in the cycle of the status quo. But I broke out, and today I want to talk about series that can help you break out if that's what you're looking to do. If you're trying to break out of the big two, Marvel and DC, but you need sort of that little baby step where it's still superheroes, but not, with a twist, with some sort of gripping moment to it, some sort of reason to make you want to step away from the big two and explore things outside of that universe, those universes. Today we're going to talk about 6 non-Marvel and DC superhero comics. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're interested in the opportunity to win a hardcover comic at the end of every month, we do giveaways on our Patreon. Whatever we get pretty much is what we give away at our Patreon, so a lot of fun stuff happening there. It is the year of custom binds. If you're looking to get graphic covers done, dust jackets, hit us up at our email below. We do that $10 flat. Now let's talk about some comics, people. I can't talk about non-Marvel and DC superhero comics without mentioning the Valiant Universe. I've mentioned Valiant many times, so I'm not going to talk about too many of their titles here, but a few. The first is Harbinger. The reason I mentioned this title is in particular for X-Men fans. This would be a sort of a great title to get them out of the big two universe and get them excited about a different universe with a different set of characters. Because the Harbinger characters and the Psiots in general are not too dissimilar from the mutants of the Marvel universe. The universe of the Valiant Universe itself is a lot more mature with a lot more permanent consequences. Very dark characters that make, a lot of decisions in a very gray zone. The characters that you cheer for very often within the series, and it ran for a very long time, so there's a good amount of content. Not as much as X-Men, of course, but a good amount in the 2012 reboot. I really enjoyed it. Valiant was probably, aside from another title I'm going to mention shortly here, the main reason I got excited about comics outside of the big two. It was a very exciting universe. The consequences were very real, and the general vibe that I got as I read the book was unlike anything I'd ever gotten reading a Marvel or DC title. The characters were super compelling. They progressed a lot throughout the story, and it was very tough to sort of judge a character or like or dislike any character definitively for an extended period of time, which I thought was really, really nice. Joshua Dysart is the writer of this series, and there are a plethora of fantastic artists. Since this is the hardcover comic, there's some spine action for you. If you've ever considered the deluxes, they are glued and not great. But that is Harbinger for you all. Check that out. One book that I do not own physically, unfortunately, that I hope to buy in some day is Irredeemable by Mark Waid. This ran for 37 issues. It's published by Boom Studios. There were some really nice deluxes, premiere editions that came out recently that went out of print pretty quickly and got expensive very quickly. But that series is so fantastic. The high-level storyline is the idea of, let's say, a Superman type character going rogue and deciding to turn on his fellow superhero community, and what the consequences of that would be and how those characters would react. If you've read something like Injustice, it's akin to that in a very broad way, in that a very powerful character starts doing nefarious things, but the story, the content, the actual themes explored within the story are very mature, very adult, and outside of things that the big two could ever do in their comic books. Maybe they could with like Black Label stuff at DC, but still very crazy stuff happening in Irredeemable. Amazing artwork by Peter Krause. I really enjoy Irredeemable. Again, it might be tough to find physically, but you can definitely read it digitally. There are usually great sales on like the omnibus that collects the digital omnibus that collects the entire series. So I highly recommend checking that out. It's one of Mark Waid's best works. If you enjoy Irredeemable, there's also the sort of spiritual successor, a spin-off called Incorruptible, that follows another character within that same universe. Of course, I do have to mention Invincible. Since I don't have a volume 1 to show here, I'm really quickly going to fly through some pages here with artwork because I don't want to spoil anything. A lot has happened in the series at this point. I love Invincible. It is definitely the main comic that sort of broke me away from the big two and got me really excited about Image. It introduced me to the company, to be sure, and then I started exploring outside of there. Real Consequences, 144 issues of amazing adult, serious superhero storylines with amazing twists, incredible characters, a plethora of characters that you get introduced to. Characters come and go. It's a very, very fantastic book. I can't wait for the animated series that's coming soon to Amazon Prime. I can't recommend this enough. I wish I could show more and talk more about this, but I don't want to spoil anything. Go read it. Another Valiant book, Exo Man of War, very loosely a superhero book here. I mean, it's about a character who is, in the 6th century, who happens to encounter alien technology, right? I mean, not very super heroic. He doesn't really necessarily have powers, although there is something special about him. I'm not going to spoil too much aside from that. The series, this was the Robert Venditti series, the 2012 volume of Exo Man of War. Like I said, written by Robert Venditti with an incredible array of artists that worked with him on the title. I really love this book. One of the big things that you'll hear me mention on this channel is character progression and development. And what Robert Venditti did with Auric of Dacia here is fantastic. I love that this was a great introduction to the entire Valiant Universe with characters like Ninjak showing up, among others. This is a great place to start for anyone who really likes, the classic Marvel or DC comics, 6-issue story arcs, crossover characters and titles, things like that. There are a few events that this crosses over with, and it eventually joins up with the team book Unity. I can't recommend Exo Man of War enough. I absolutely love this book, and it was a great way to get into Valiant. Another book that I do not own physically, but I think I should pick up the hardcover for, is Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. This is a 2019 miniseries. The 2019 one, I mentioned that specifically. This is a Dynamite Entertainment comic written by Kieran Gillen with artwork by Chris Wingard. I'm probably butchering that last name. Fantastic creative team. I really, really love this mini. Dynamite sent it to us. Matt and I both read, and we were like, dude, this is one of the coolest stories we've read, superhero stories. You get thrown into a universe. If you don't know anything about these characters, that's totally fine. We didn't either. You get to meet the superheroes within this universe. You get to meet Peter Cannon, who he is, and then things get crazy so fast. It's such a fun story. What a creative villain, what a creative plot. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a great story to really show you that it doesn't matter if you don't know anything about another universe. You can dive right into it and figure it out, because a good writer can make you do that. And there are stories that just need to be shared. So Peter Cannon Thunderbolt is one of those stories. Please don't be scared because it's Dynamite or it's characters you have no clue about. Please check it out. It's fantastic. It's Kieran Gillen. Come on. He's amazing. And last but not least, a series that I'm sure a lot of you are sick of hearing me talk about, Black Hammer, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Dean Ormston. This is an incredible homage to both Marvel and DC, with obviously a nitty-gritty approach to it and a sort of Elseworld approach to it, with characters that do resemble characters from Marvel and DC, but aren't obviously them exactly. Very interesting twists and turns here. Jeff Lemire basically explores the idea of sort of classic Golden Age and Silver Age characters being on a farm, powerless, or some with powers, but no villains to fight and nothing really to do with their powers, as they try to unravel why they're in the situation they're in and why they're no longer the heroes that they used to be. It's a very, very fascinating book with incredible characters, a fascinating universe, and just a whole bunch of mystery around it that is an absolute pleasure to unravel along the way. Of course, I do recommend reading the tie-ins as well. If you're looking at the hardcovers, The World of Black Hammer and the Black Hammer Library editions are absolutely the way to go. That's what we're looking at right now. I absolutely love it. Amazing. The artwork may not be for everyone, but it's a great way to sort of, again, stick with the big two, but break away from the storytelling involved with a major publication like that. those are my 6 suggestions. A whole lot of material there, over 200, well over 200 issues. What do you guys think? What are some other non-Big Two superhero comics that you could mention? Of course, there are a lot more Valiant comics that I could have mentioned. I tried to keep it easy with the Valiant. I didn't want it to dominate the list, but I love Valiant, and it's one of my favorite non-Big Two sort of superhero. I say superhero, it's kind of in quotations. It's really characters with just, supernatural abilities or alien armors, things like that. So either way, I digress. Valiant's amazing. The 2012 to 2018 saga anyway. We'll see what happens. I can still stay optimistic about the future. Either way, let us know down in the comments below what you thought of the suggestions I brought up, what other suggestions you may have for comic fans out there trying to break away from the Big Two, but that are still just not ready yet to dive into something like Criminal or Saga. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. This is Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Subscribe, check out our Patreon, hardcover comic giveaways going on there. The Year of Custom Binds. Send us your pictures of your custom binds to our email, thehardcovercomic@gmail.com. If you need graphic cover designs or dust jackets, hit us up there as well. We do that work for you. Whatever you want, we want to make it work. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Until next time, you stay classy, Internet.